Good evening, Facebook. Welcome to the latest live session. Tonight's session is going to be a masterclass in shared ownership. So everything you need to know about the shared ownership scheme. Firstly, before we jump into the session, just wanted to say a huge thank you to all of you that tune in. If you find the content that I provide useful, then please give me a thumbs up and a like. And if you found it interesting and you think that someone else may benefit from it, I'd be really grateful if you could share the content as well, because if you find it useful, there's a very good chance that somebody else will as well. So jumping straight in then to the shared ownership masterclass, and I want to do this following on from the session that I did last week regarding the Help to Buy equity loan. And it was really successful, got lots of good feedback on that, but also prompted quite a few questions regarding the shared ownership scheme. So I thought I would jump on and do a similar thing for that scheme as well. So the shared ownership scheme is also referred to as the part buy, part rent scheme. It's offered by both housing associations and local authorities, and enables you to purchase a share of a property ranging from anywhere between 25% of the property value and 75% of the property value. And the idea is that you rent back the unsold share. You, as the purchaser, would need to put in a minimum of a 5% deposit on your share, and you would obtain a specialist shared ownership mortgage for the remaining of your share amount. So you put in 5% deposit, the other 95% is going to be as a shared ownership mortgage. On the unsold share, you pay back an affordable rent, plus also ground rent or service charge if it's applicable. Okay, so just to run through a bit of an example for you, if you had a property price of £300,000, and let's say that you were purchasing a 50% share of that property, you would need to put in a minimum of a 5% deposit. So your share would be 150,000, 5% of that would be £7,500. You would then need to obtain a shared ownership mortgage for the remaining of your share, which is 142,500. The other 150,000 shares, the 50% share, is owned by the housing association and or local authority, and that's the part for which you pay back an affordable rent. There may also be some ground rent and service charge payable for that. So who's the scheme good for? So the shared ownership scheme is particularly good for people that have either a smaller deposit, because it's only 5% of your share amount. So on the example I just given, £7,500, you wouldn't be able to put down that little on a conventional purchase. And obviously if you're purchasing a smaller share, say 25%, your deposit's going to be half of that. It's particularly popular in expensive areas, so in and around Bicester, Brackley, Buckingham, closer to you get to London, it's hugely popular as well, and that's because the house prices are very, very expensive. So it's very difficult for people to get on the housing ladder in the conventional, traditional route. So shared ownership provides that foot on the ladder, meaning that someone can get on the property ladder where otherwise they may not have been able to do so. It's also good for households with lower incomes, or again where the property prices outweigh the household income. You know, quite often in the areas which I deal with a lot of my customers, the southeast of England, the property prices far outweigh the average income and salary for the household. So shared ownership again is particularly good in those areas. So hopefully that makes sense. That's kind of a bit of a crash course in terms of shared ownership and how it works. I have received quite a few questions in regarding this, so I've got some questions to answer. But before I fly into those questions and answer them, can you just let me know that it all makes sense so far? I don't think I've lost any viewers. Hopefully you're still with me and understand what I say. If you've got any questions about anything that I've mentioned so far, just pop it in the comments. I can answer that live on the session. Let's see if we get any thumbs up, see if everyone is still on board and understands so far. Anyone? Come on, there's a few of you on board. A few of you still watching, so surely some of you are understanding where we're at with it. Good. Still no thumbs up, which, oh, there we go, Deck. Good friend of mine, all good, fantastic. So I was going to say still no thumbs up, so I'm going to take a punt that you're just being shy, and it does make sense. If not, I've tried my hardest. So questions we've had in then. Questions I had today was, who determines what share you can buy? So I mentioned at the beginning you can buy anything from a 25% share to a 75% share of a property, but who determines that? Well, essentially, an affordability assessment will be conducted by the housing association, who quite often appoint their own financial advisors or mortgage brokers to conduct that on their behalf. There is a model that is set up that's got certain eligibility criteria around it. I won't bore you to death with all of it, but one of the eligibility criteria is that the amount that you borrow cannot exceed 4.5 times the household income. There are also some debt to income, household income to debt ratios that you need to fit within as well. But not really anything for you to worry about. It's for the financial advisor, mortgage advisor and or housing association to advise you on. But they will determine, based on your income, your expenditure and your situation, what share you're going to be eligible for, whether it's the minimum share of 25%, whether it's the maximum of 75%, or whether it's somewhere in between. So hopefully that answers your question. Next question we've got is, can you buy out more shares? So I think what they're asking here is that, let's say you buy a 25% share of a property, or even a 50% share of a property, can you buy out subsequent shares thereafter? And the answer is yes. With the majority of modern shared ownership leases, you can do that. So pretty much all of them these days allow it, but it is worth just checking the shared ownership scheme that you're signing up for does allow it. There are some that don't, but the majority, 9 times out of 10, they will. And that's called staircasing. So staircasing is essentially buying out further shares. So if you started off at 25%, and then after 2 years you decided, because you had a pay increase, that you wanted to buy out more, you could be reassessed. They conduct the affordability assessment, and subject to you being able to fund it either with a mortgage or with however else you're going to do it, with savings or inheritance, you could buy out another share of the property. And eventually, majority of shared ownership schemes do allow you to staircase out in full, so you could obtain complete ownership of the property. Again, there are some exceptions to that. It is worth checking the shared ownership lease details, but most modern day shared ownership leases allow you to staircase out in full. So you might enter in at 25%, but within a couple of years, 5 years, 10 years, however long it might be, you could buy out further shares and end up eventually owning 100% of the property, as as a conventional purchase, essentially. So hopefully that answers your question. And one more final question. If anyone else has got any questions, pop them in the comments now, because I've only got one more left that I'm going to answer. I've got a few other bits to cover off you, but then we will wrap up. So the final question is, can I enjoy the property as my own? And I think essentially what they're asking here is, you obviously purchase a share of the property, the unsold share is rented back. So a lot of people think that it's classed as a rented property. So have you got to ask the landlord or the housing association essentially permission? What can you do in the property? Do you have quiet enjoyment, or are they going to be quite intrusive and invasive and come up and ask for regular visits, etc.? Now, I have lived in a shared ownership property, and the majority of clients that I help that are buying shared ownership properties find it's a really good experience. And on the whole, you can live in that property as if it was your own and you purchased it in the conventional way. So no, the housing associations aren't intrusive. They're not going to insist on regular inspections. You are allowed to decorate. You are allowed to upgrade your kitchen. You are allowed to upgrade your bathroom. If there are any structural changes, then normally there's conditions within the lease that state that you should ask the housing association or local authority for their permission beforehand. So if you're putting on a conservatory or an extension or something like that, or knocking out structural walls, then yes, you need to obtain permission. But on the whole, if it's adding value to the property, there shouldn't be any queries with that. So, I mean, I lived in my shared ownership property for about 4 years, and you wouldn't know any different. I didn't get one inspection from the housing association. I decorated and did all the bits and enjoyed living in the house as you would a conventional, traditional purchase. So I think the answer to that question is yes, you can enjoy the property as it is your own. I'm sure there will be exceptions, as there is with everything. But on the whole, everything that I've heard and my personal experience is that, yeah, shared ownership, you live in it as it is your own. And I really enjoyed the property that I lived in. So hopefully that answers the question. Right. There's a few of you still with me. Hopefully it makes sense. Can I get a few thumbs up from you just to say that you understand and I've not lost you, hopefully, and you're not turning off, fingers crossed anyway. And if any of you have got any questions about shared ownership, mortgages, the purchase process, or anything like that, then feel free to ask the questions now and I'll answer them live for you, or you can private message me and we'll do that in more of a private environment as well. That's absolutely fine. If you are interested in a shared ownership property, then I would recommend that you look for your local Help to Buy agent. So Help to Buy is grouped into various areas across the UK. They've just changed these recently, but previously it was Help to Buy South, Help to Buy Midlands, Help to Buy London. They've grouped a few of them all together now. But find your local Help to Buy area and go on there and register your interest for shared ownership properties, because what that will do is it will get you on the list and it will give you a unique reference number, and that reference number will be what you need to put your name forward to show an interest in any properties. And sometimes if there's more than one of you that are interested, and it could come down to who registered their interest first, so it's best to get your name on the register. Also, by signing up with Help to Buy, you will be able to be kept abreast of any new shared ownership properties that come to the market. There's lots of good information on there for first time buyers and next time buyers. It explains the shared ownership scheme on there as well, probably better than I have done this evening. But it's a really good sort of hub of knowledge. So I'd recommend that you find your local Help to Buy scheme. If you're unsure of who your Help to Buy scheme is, drop me a message where you live and I'll tell you, and I'll send you the link. So it will direct you straight to the site and you can register your interest and have a look around at the useful information that's on there. Good, hopefully that all makes sense. So if you found any of that information useful and you feel that some of your friends, colleagues, or family would also find that useful, then please share this content. I'd like to try and help as many people as possible. Please like the post as well. You'll be supporting a small local business and I would really appreciate that. So just before we wrap up, as you can probably see, it's very hot in here. Hopefully you can excuse the sweat on my face. It is around 30 degrees, and what you can't see is that I have two soft lights to try and make the lighting a bit better for your viewing pleasure, but they are very hot as well. So 30 degrees also by huge lamps shining on me is not a good look, so apologies for that. So just to summarize, shared ownership in a nutshell. So what is shared ownership? Shared ownership is a part buy, part rent scheme. It enables you to purchase a share ranging from 25 to 75% of the property value. It's offered by local authorities and housing associations. You, as the purchaser, would be required to put in a minimum of a 5% deposit of your share. So take an example, if you're buying a property of £300,000, you were buying a 50% share of that property, £150,000. 5% of that would be £7,500 as your deposit. You would then need a shared ownership mortgage to fund the rest of your share, so £142,500 would be the shared ownership mortgage. Hopefully that makes sense. For the unsold share, you rent that back at an affordable rent from the housing association or local authority. It's good for people that have either a smaller deposit or on lower incomes, or in an expensive area to live. So the southeast of England, in and around Bicester, Buckinghamshire, Brackley, and the closer you get to London, it's a hugely popular scheme because often it's the only way people can get on the housing ladder. So that is shared ownership summarised. Hopefully that makes sense. If you've got any questions or queries, feel free to reach out to me. Would love to hear you. As always, thank you for tuning in, and I will see you again at 7:30 next Wednesday. Thanks guys, love you all.